Yes. All right. What's up, everybody? Obviously, we're back again. Another week of Cherry Creek Zoom calls. This week, I'll be hosting, obviously, with Lauren as well. And I'll be kind of directing or running it tonight. And what I wanted to talk about, or what I want to touch base on, a couple different things. Lauren and I met earlier this week and kind of got an outline about it. But it's something that I know that every coach can see. And I want to only help you with the game of hockey, but anything that you actually put your mind to or take interest in. I'm noticing it more and more in my life, as well as some of the kids on the ice as well. It's going to be, and the overall theme here is going to be training with purpose. So that means a lot of different things. It's all encompassing as well, but pretty much whatever you're doing, do it 100%. And within that overall theme, there's a couple different things we'll touch on. I got written down here. We might go off and talk about different scenarios. I know Lauren's got a couple examples that we discussed before that I think are perfect. They fit very well into this as well. But some of the bullet points that I have underneath this is taking ownership over a decision, growth in your training, and then your peers, teammates, and coaches are all going to take notice and be aware of it as well. So I guess I'll start off by saying what I mean by training with purpose. The best example that I can come up with is, and I know every coach across the entire world in any sport is going to recognize, at the end of a drill, if it finishes with a shot, you shoot the puck with purpose to score a goal on the goalie. It is not that you got through the hard part or you made it through the drill without making a mistake or whatever it is. You finish it all the way through until you shoot. And then there's, in this instance for hockey, if there's a rebound, you take your chance at the rebound if the drill calls for it, and then you get back in line. So that drill's not over until it's all the way completed and you've touched on all the skills within it. And then that the biggest thing for me is a deficiency that I see within a lot of different players, whether you're 8 years old or you're 18 years old, is shots. The best way to work on your shot in a game scenario is to work on the ice when you're shooting in stride, you're shooting under pressure, you're shooting under duress against somebody that's also trying to not let you score. So that's a huge thing for me. And don't take for granted the end of the drill if you're not going to shoot every single time. But it's bigger than that, obviously, right? It's not just shooting at the end of a drill. Lauren, do you have anything to touch on that necessarily just yet?
No, I think you pretty much hit the nail on the head. But yeah, really what we're talking about is just, from the second the whistle blows or it's your turn, it's everything from how you pass, calling for a puck, how you come out of the corner. Are you, just kind of slowly getting moving, or are your feet chopping right away? Do you finish with a hard shot, or do you just kind of float the puck towards the net? The biggest thing I think with going 100%, is not everyone can tell all the time, but whether you're going 100% or not. The coaches have a decent idea, but you're the only one who knows if you're giving 100% every time to everything you do. And that's kind of what we're trying to cover. It's not just the skill in the drill, it's everything start to finish. It's when you're standing in line, are you shooting pucks at the boards, or are you actively recovering and paying attention to what's going on and learning from other players? It's everything you do should be done with intention, not just certain parts of the drill or certain parts of a practice.
Yeah, and I think the best thing, or what I really like the way that you put it, is done with intention. There's so many different things, not just in the game of hockey, but that we do, and you decide to do it. So if you're going to make the decision to do it, which kind of leads me into my first bullet point is you're taking ownership over the decision about your development. So in this scenario, in this practice scenario that we have here, training with purpose, and training could be anything from practice to in games, to sitting on the bench in a game, to your off ice conditioning, to shooting in the garage, whatever it is. you're taking ownership over that decision. One of the things I have down here, and I think touched on earlier in our Zoom calls, was once you make the decision that hockey is a priority or your development is a priority, it makes a lot of other decisions non-decisions. So like if it's the decision to the night before, I don't know, try out a practice, training day, are you going to go out and stay up too late playing video games or out with your friends, or are you going to go to bed and then prepare so your body's rested for the next day? If you've made that decision, taking ownership over your development, it's no longer a decision. You know what you're going to do. Lauren, do you want to expand on that? I know it's more in your wheelhouse, but we touched on that earlier in our Zoom calls. If you have anything, if not, we can continue on.
Yeah, I think that came up in the very first call we did, and we called it prioritizing first things first. And while that sounds somewhat constricting, like, oh, I can't go out with my friends or I can't stay up and play video games, it's the opposite, because it takes the decision away, and now your mind is free to focus on the things that matter and to focus on the problems that are coming or the decisions you do actually have to make coming up, because you've already made the decision that this is what you're committed to. And don't get us wrong, like, there's nothing wrong with prioritizing friends or fun things that you like to do. Those are important things too. But what we would love for you guys to be able to figure out is what's the most important to me, and get in the habit of choosing that thing every single time and choosing whatever's higher on your priority list. And if there is one night where you do decide to go spend time with your friends instead of whatever your commitment is, understand that that's you stepping outside of your values. And at the same time, it's different if I'm going on a family vacation during a camp. That's different. Like, family is a huge value for a lot of people, and it's okay to make that choice. Just do it on purpose.
Awesome. Yeah, I think in that decision, when you make your development, your hockey development a priority, people start to understand that. They'll understand that you need to go to bed early, that you can't do this, but you can do this. You're not available this day, but this day, because they understand that's what you value and what you take serious, and they can see that you're passionate about it. I think that's very, very powerful, and people will recognize that. I don't think they'll hold it against you. Kind of moving on to my next bullet point is the growth aspect of it. I know Lauren touched on this earlier in the week, and I think she put it in a very good way, easy way to understand, is training at your threshold. If you train at your threshold, you're going to improve. I know Lauren does have a good story about that in high school hockey, training at a boys camp for a summer. Do you want to touch on that really quick?
For sure. Yeah. I remember the first time I went to a boys camp, just playing in Minnesota, it's not as hard to find girls camps, girls teams, girls programs. So it was not ever something I really had to do to go play with the boys. But one summer, I decided to do the boys camp and the girls camp in the morning and afternoon, and then I'd go to AAA at night. It was literally all I did all the time. And that summer, I saw more improvement than I did in any other summer. And I don't think it was the volume of hockey that I was doing, because yes, I was playing a lot. I was playing all day. Where I think I saw the most improvement was one with my AAA team. I was playing, so it was a little bit earlier than high school. I was playing on a 12s team. Every tournament we went to, we were playing 14s. And we were getting our butts kicked all the time, but we developed so much. We learned to play faster. We learned to pass harder, shoot harder, defend better, everything that we had to do to keep up. And then I had a really similar time with the boys. It was 2 hours of ice a day, 1 hour of dry land, 1 hour of classroom. And I remember at the end of every day being absolutely exhausted when I would get done with the boys camp, and I was not a good player in that camp. I was probably bottom 25%. I was not keeping up very well, but every day it took 100% of what I had, whether I showed up and I felt good, it was Monday morning and I felt fresh, or it was Friday and all I had was like 60%. I would give 100% of my 60%, do the best I could. Every drill, it felt like an overspeed drill. And every time I went into the corner, I knew that there was a chance I was going to get blown up. So I had to keep my head up. And every shot that I took, I knew if I didn't shoot it as hard as I could, or if I just fluffed it towards the net, or, not even took it easy, but gave it anything other than 100%, I was going to embarrass myself. So every single day I was training at my threshold, going as hard as my body could go without burning out. And that's when I went from being an average player to being a starter every year. Um, it was a total game changer, just having every practice and every time I was on the ice being at that level. Just training at your threshold, that's where the growth happens. It didn't happen when I was playing with people who weren't pushing me or doing drills that weren't um, developing me. It came from being around players who were better than me and who were pushing me. And then I eventually learned to create that for myself, so that when I was one of the better players on the team, like maybe some of the other girls aren't able to push me if I'm playing against someone who's not quite at my skill level, I was able to create that for myself because I knew what my threshold felt like. And I was so comfortable in that zone that I could just get myself there, and I no longer needed players or coaches to do it for me.
Yeah, I think that's an incredible experience and an example and what we're talking about. And I was thinking about this too. I was like, okay, so why, right? Look, why training at your threshold um, it gets you to that next level, or gets most players, or gets a handful of players to that next level. And for me, when I noticed it, it was when I went from high school to college. So I went on a prep school in a Division II prep school league in NESCAC, and to Division I college. Um, I had to learn pretty quick at how fast that pace was going to be. And I was thinking about it today and yesterday of why did that help? And for me, when I'm pushing myself, you stay dialed in. I stayed dialed in the entire time. So when I'm staying dialed in, so I'm recognizing different things, right? I'm recognizing things about myself, my deficiencies, or things my weaknesses I need to work on, but also my strengths. I'm very aware of what I can and can't do when I'm pushing myself to the limits against another player. Um, but more than that, you recognize what you're dialed in, you're noticing different details, but you're also recognizing what the other players are doing. So the players that are exploiting a weakness of yours, you're going to pick up on patterns and routines that they have. So then you're like, all right, once I get quick enough to shut this move down, they have to decide and they have to change their attack to do something else. Then you stay dialed in because you're pushing through your threshold at that zone, and then you shut down the next thing. And then they have to come up with something different until you guys are now evenly matched, and now you can start coming up with ways to take advantage or exploit their weaknesses. Because as you're doing that, as you're seeing what they're capable of doing, you can recognize what they can and can't do. So then once you go on the attack, you can exploit their weaknesses. So for me, that was a huge aspect of it, was playing against kids that are way better than me, recognizing different things that they did to not only me as a player, but to other players. I can see why they were able to come out of the corner that easily with so much time and space is because they had this X skill. X skill could have been amazing hands, a movement, a shield, a reverse mohawk, or a way they protected the puck. Something that I was like, all right, well, I get it. I see what they're doing. I can add that to my game now. So when you're pushing yourself, I always stayed super dialed in and noticed those details, and then added those that fit into my game to my game. which then gave just more tools in the toolbox to use as options when I needed them. That's the biggest thing for me is when you take ownership of the decision of your development and you're pushing yourself to that threshold in that zone, you stay dialed in, and then you can, it's not just a passing drill anymore. It's a passing drill and timing, passing drill and shooting gaps. It's passing drill and exploiting a defenseman that's got slow feet or that can't turn. You start seeing different things that you didn't before because you didn't make that decision for your development. Lauren, does that make sense?
Yeah, it definitely does. And I would take that so far as you start developing that habit while you're doing the drill, and then it starts to become something that you do outside of the drill. So when you're in line, instead of, standing there with your hands on your knees, you have your head up and you're looking around and looking for better ways to do things and watching your teammates and seeing who's keeping up and who's not. And you're dialed in when you're in line. And then that mentality starts to take itself off the ice. And all of a sudden you're dialed in when it comes to what you eat, and you're dialed in when it comes to your sleeping habits and all of these other areas of life. When you start seeing progress because you are focused 100%, that's when you start to see the changes. So the threshold rule doesn't just happen in practice, it happens everywhere. And it's really small changes. That's the thing, is it's hard to recognize because it's small changes that make a really big difference and can be hard to recognize at first. But the result of doing them constantly is, everyone has that summer. I'm sure you've seen it with guys that you've played against where he sucked last year and all of a sudden he's like could be on the top 2 lines on varsity. Like, where did that come from? And it came, there wasn't one magical day where he got good. It was months of being dialed in during the drill, between the drills, off the ice. He's more dialed in than you are. And that is why guys make big leaps like that. The people who are willing to make the sacrifices and do the hard things and to stay that dialed in. It takes a lot, but that's kind of where that magic happens, is right at that threshold. You don't get any better doing things at 50%.
Yeah. I would 100% agree with you. And in training at that threshold, I think is another thing we touched on in one of our earlier Zoom calls, is you're going to fail a lot. Like, you're going to make a lot of mistakes training at the top of your game day in and day out. But with that, staying focused on what the end goal is, it's going to make you a better player in the long run, because you're going to figure out, oh, that didn't work out so well. I got to change up this. Inquire to a coach. All right, what should I do differently? How could I have done that differently? Where did I mess up? A lot of times, you messed up, but you didn't know where in the process or the play that it happened. It could have happened 3 steps earlier, and you didn't realize or recognize it until it was already happened. So that's what we were supposed to do as a support staff, as a supporting cast to you players, is to give you the perspective that we have, so then you can add it to your game and try it the next time. Moving on to like my third bullet point is, so if you're training with purpose, you're making the decision, you're taking ownership over that, and you're training at that threshold, your peers, coaches, and teammates are going to take notice. It's going to be very, very apparent that you're taking this serious and you're putting in the effort. Guys in line that have to go against you are going to notice that, obviously. And then if you make a lot of guys look silly, or if you're bringing up the compete level or the intensity level in a drill, the coaches are going to notice that as well. That's the other thing too, is that compete level then raises up, and that's contagious. If you bring up the compete level, if you're going every drill, training with purpose, and you're going 100%, and every time you get into a battle, you're winning the stick battles, or it's getting increasingly difficult to win a stick battle against you, guys are going to notice that. And it's amazing that in practice, you don't want to look bad for a coach, so you may not go against that guy, but that guy's the guy that you want on the ice in the last 2 minutes of a close game. That's the guy that I want in the last 30 seconds of a close game, is the guy that's used to battling in the corner basically to the death to try to win that puck. Like, that's the kind of guy that coaches and teammates and your peers are going to take notice of, and they're going to get on board. It's going to be contagious. I'm a pretty competitive person, so there's a lot of things that when people challenge me at things, I very rarely say no. And that's just who I am, and that's why I love the sport. But that's kind of the things that you're going to see is guys aren't going to like it, but a lot of guys are going to like it. And then the guys that don't like it at first, they'll get on board. So with that being said, when you are doing 100%, your compete levels raised up, and you start, I guess, making guys look silly or winning consistently 100% of your battles, or shooting as hard as you can every single shot. There's a term out there that I wanted to touch on that I'm sure you guys have all heard it, try hard, right? I've even been called it. I think it was like last week. Some kid called it when I was jumping in one of the scrimmages. Some kid called me that. But for me, and he said it in a derogatory way, and I was like, that didn't compute with me, because if I'm gonna take interest in something, if I'm gonna join something, I have a hard press, and it has how competitive I am to not try hard when I'm doing it. To me, it's a waste of my emotions, a waste of my energy, to not put everything into it. So that will happen. I actually know Lauren's got a story about this, and I think it was in high school tryouts. Maybe not this in particular term, but you were out competing one of the players, and then she, in a defense mechanism, started making excuses of why you were beating her every single time. And it's like, that's, which player would you rather be, the one getting beat or the one winning, right? Lauren, do you remember that story?
Yeah, for sure. So this was those of you who've had me in with Creek during the season know that I didn't play my freshman year of hockey because of an injury, but coming back sophomore year, trying out for varsity, I'll never forget this. There was a girl on the team who was a senior, and sorry, my dog is like being dramatic. But we did like a one-on-one drill, and she had to like skate backwards from the dot to the blue line. It was just one-on-one full ice, but she couldn't turn around to the blue line. So I was like, easy. I'm just blitz past her, which kind of ruined the drill, honestly, because you didn't really get to see an accurate one-on-one. It was just a race pretty much. But she was continuing to get mad at me, and she's like, you're ruining the drill. The point of the drill is like a one-on-one, down at the other end of the ice. And I was like, no, if I can beat you here, I'm going to beat you here. I'm not going to sandbag it for half the drill and then try and beat you when we're more evenly matched. Like, if there's an advantage to be had here, I'm going to take it. And so that was just like a theme that continued to come up. It made my compete level go up, because I'm like, well, I'm beating a senior who's been on this team for 2-3 years. And she continued to tank. Like, everyone started beating her just because she had given up. She decided that if I can't win the first half of the drill, I just can't win the drill. And she was a gifted player. She was better than that. She could have made it a decent drill at the other end of the ice. She just wouldn't, because I was bringing that intensity, and I was, like I talked about, as important as it is to finish the drill with intention, it's also important to start it that way. And how I came out of the corner defined the rest of that drill for me. So I ended up taking her spot on that team, and she got cut as a senior, and I made it as a sophomore because, and it wasn't that drill specifically, I'm sure, but I have to believe that coaches were looking at somebody who competes with intensity. There's more potential there than somebody who doesn't care. And even though she had proven herself before, had really good seasons before, she wasn't willing to compete with someone who's a threat to her. it made her, she felt like she didn't look as bad if she just kind of gave up and was like, well, I don't care, and that's why I'm getting beat. That doesn't look good. You getting beat because you don't care does not look good. You getting beat, period, doesn't, unless it's both of you going at your threshold and the other guy was better that day. That's okay. But the coaches are always, at least in this organization, going to appreciate the kid who works. And that's what at least I know Neil and myself are looking for in this upcoming trial, is people who are working hard start to finish, and do the little things right. And they don't care who they're up against. They don't care if it's a sophomore going against a senior or even a bigger differential than that. Like, it doesn't matter who you're up against. If you're a lot better than them, if they're a lot better than you, you should go in expecting to win and being willing to fight and do whatever you have to do to make sure that you're not getting beat.
Yeah, that's 100%. I had a similar situation. So I went to school. When I got to college, we had a couple captain skates earlier in the year, and then obviously practices started, and found out that I had to close a gap pretty quick if I wanted to play. I was a healthy scratch. I think it was my first 7 games of the year. Then got to play the eighth game of the season, and I played every game after that the rest of the year. But you better believe that Monday through Thursday in every practice that I was figuring out ways to make other guys look dumb or figuring out ways to beat them out of their own spot. We carried it's a big roster, similar to what we have here at Creek. It's a roster that gives the coaches the ability to mix things up. And that's all I wanted. I was looking to exploit a weakness of somebody else within a drill, willing to battle. Well, what did I have to lose, right? I wasn't even playing. I was a healthy scratch. I wasn't even injured. I just wasn't playing. So what I had to lose, right? So eventually worked my way in the lineup by doing just that. Staying dialed in, staying focused, figuring out who my best opportunity was. I played center at the time. We had a ton of guys that played center. So it was not even just the next guy in line. It was a couple guys. And that's a role on the ice you have to be pretty responsible. So everybody usually has one of those experiences, and you shouldn't stop working if it doesn't work out. So, another thing too is with that term is when we say you should be going 100%, it doesn't mean as fast as you can all the time. The distinction there, I actually was talking to Popovic, who was on the call last week. He was telling me about his experience playing pro, whether it was here in the States or in Canada or overseas in Europe. You could always tell the college guys that came straight from college to the pros because they skate at 100 miles an hour to the wrong spot. And it's because that's the type of game. Pro game is a different game than college. So when we say that you should be going 100%, it doesn't mean 100 miles an hour as fast as you can the whole time. It just means, and Lauren had a good example earlier this week when she said, if it's a battle in the corner, yeah, you want to be going 100%, 100 miles an hour and try to beat that guy out of the corner. But if it's a passing weave drill, it doesn't do you any good to be twice or 3 times faster than your teammates as you guys are trying to find lanes and support each other up the ice. So there's varying degrees of that. And I think it's just as much mental as it is physical when we tell you to just go all out. Does that make sense? Lauren, is that what you're talking about?
Yep.
Okay. And then the last bullet point that I have is within all of this. So we talked about training with purpose, taking ownership over that decision in your development, how the growth happens training at your threshold, and how your peers and coaches and teammates will recognize that decision. When you do that, when you create that, you're building a culture around you. I think, though, one of the most unique things about this sport is that it's bigger than you. You're not alone. It's not golf. It's not tennis. You're part of something bigger. You're a cog in the machine, and as you build and grow and compete, that is what's going to build that culture around you. It might start with one guy, then it might build to another guy, and then you might see some resistance, but overall, people are going to welcome hard work, compete, and decisive uh, players that are willing to go through a brick wall for them. It's like that's the culture that you're going to build around you. If you embrace the grind and love the hard work and don't get caught up in all the drama or this and that or he said she said, you'll be setting the standard for the culture that you will be a part of. I think that's the biggest thing is you've set those expectations. And if we went through, like, if you go through the whole list of what we talked about tonight, then people know what your priorities are. They know how passionate you are about them. They know what decision you're going to make when they present you with a scenario. Not going to go stay out late tonight. I got to go to bed, whatever it is. And then they know what level that you compete at. Like that, they know when they get involved, whether they want to be your friend or they want to be your teammate, what they need to bring to be a part of that circle. I think that's huge is you've now created something bigger than yourself that people can be a part of, and you can lead them in that culture. And ultimately that's what we want, right? We want a hardworking culture, a positive culture, a supportive culture, hopefully a winning culture. But you set that standard, and if you're setting the pace to make working hard cool. Like that's massive. That creates a following. That creates you becoming a leader. Those are those intangible skills that don't show up on the score sheet that every coach asks for. Whether it's your current coach, whether it's the varsity coach, whether it's your junior coach, college coach, they're going to ask you about what situations where you had to lead a group of people, an interview for a job. All of that stuff is going to happen. They're going to be like, have you been in a leadership role before? And you can confidently say yes, and this is why, and this is what I did. Like that is a massive in building that and realizing, gain that perspective that you're a part of something bigger than yourself. I know I kind of went on a tangent there, but Lauren, do you have anything to add?
No, I really don't. I think you hit it right on the head. Whatever you're doing is what's going to, the people around you are going to start doing it, or you can start doing what they're doing. It's up to you to decide to be disciplined and follow through with the decisions that you've made and act like the person that you want to become, and people will start to fall in line with that when they see the positive results that you're experiencing.
Yeah. It's hard to knock a player or a person that's seeing success and you've seen what they had to do to get there. It's hard to say that it was lucky. It's hard to say that it was it just fell into their lap. Yeah, it's if you see the decisions that they're making day in and day out consistently, and it aligns with what we talked about tonight. Not only you're going to want to be a part of that, I want to be a part of that, and you're going to start building. You're going to start building something, and I think that's probably one of the most addictive things that I've seen in my lifetime is once you start building something, you get to see all the people that can be a part of it. And then you don't have to do it alone. Like that's the other thing too. Like we're all here. You've got a great support staff and coaches, resources and off-ice trainers, mental skills trainers. We're all here to support this decision-making and this idea and this passion and this compete level throughout your hockey career at Creek. So I think that's a powerful tool that we have in our resources here. I know that it's a couple minutes early than what we normally we usually end at an hour, and it's a little bit earlier than that. I don't have anything else really to touch on. Lauren, do you have anything that you want to?
If we don't have any questions.
Yeah, if anyone has a question, feel free to put it in the chat. We can answer a few because we got some time. If not, then we can always end early too. We'll give you guys a few minutes to type something in there. But yeah, I'll touch on my experience for the summer. it's great to be a part of these summer skates and see and meet all the kids that are involved in the Creek organization or coming up through the ranks. I know there's been a lot of kids that I've gotten to know over the last couple weeks, and it's fantastic, whether they're trying out for JV this fall or varsity, or whether they're eighth graders. We still got to see them another year. It's been fantastic to see everybody, see the drills, goof around with them in lines and stuff. I know we had some challenges with COVID, but we're all in it together. Like I know that sounds pretty cliche, but we're all facing the same challenges on the ice. I mean, we're coaches are wearing masks and everything, but we want to make it as normal as possible. This is literally something that I love to do. I love doing it with you guys, and it's the best part of my day. It's hanging out with you guys on the ice, shooting pucks, making plays, all that kind of stuff. So once again, I appreciate being a part of this camp and this organization as well.
Yeah, I'd echo everything Neil said. It's been fun for me. Even though, we have a limited number of coaches that can go on the ice and things like that, it's been fun to, one, do these calls and be able to kind of team up with Neil and do them together and be able to share a little bit more of our experience as players. But also to do the strength and conditioning stuff. I've had a blast doing that, and I know a few of you curse my name under your breath when you have the chance, but I'm okay with being that coach, and I'm really proud. I have to give a shout out to Group 5, who's had me like almost every time, and they have really learned to settle in to uncomfortable workouts and physical discomfort and be able to work hard. And yeah, I've been very impressed with the effort that I've seen through some really tough days, hot days, doing push-ups on concrete in uncomfortable places. So I'm proud of you guys and very much looking forward to tryouts. I hope that everyone makes it really hard on the coaches to make decisions. I'm looking forward to it.
All right. If that's it, I don't see any questions. I didn't receive any in private, nor did I see one in the group chat. We'll let you guys go for tonight. Yes, this was the last Zoom call of the summer, and I think for me, it's been awesome because I got to share parts of my life that I don't normally get to share with you as a coach. But yeah, we'll let you guys go, and we'll see you guys next week. I won't see you tomorrow for off ice or anything, but we'll see you guys in the coming weeks for sure.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yep. Thanks, guys.
Great job, you two.